beautiful people. Today I want to show you how we built our little home on wheels that we've been traveling across Australia in for the last 2 months. It was an old tradie van that we completely transformed to our now very comfortable and affordable home. Using pretty much all recycled materials, we kept our costs very, very low. In this video, I'll take you step by step through how exactly we put this thing together and what materials we use. I'll explain the design of our bed to table conversion, how I upholstered the foam mattress and designed the curtains, and how we installed the second deep cycle battery, isolator, and inverter system. I will, however, not go into much detail about exactly what tools we use because, quite frankly, I don't even know what most of them are called. I'd also like to point out that we are complete beginners and I'm not really in any position to teach anyone how to build anything. And this video is more for the purpose of showing you that anyone can take on a project like this, and all you really need is some patience, Google, and a few good friends to lend you a few tools. At the end of the video, I will also show you all the supplies we bought, how much they cost, and where we got them. I'll also give a breakdown of the estimated total cost of this project. Well, let's get to it. Enjoy! Okay, so step one, of course, would be to buy a van. We got our 1997 Toyota Townace from an old fleet of vans from an electrical company. Our van came with a lot of stickers on the body that we didn't want, so we used a heat gun to warm up the glue and peel them all off. Step 3 is to get a mechanical checkup. Our good friend Rod showed us how to do an oil change and basic maintenance on the road so we can save money later on. Step 4. Get all the sweat and stains out of the interior of the van and make it sparkly and new. Caution should be exercised when taking a pressure washer to the inside of your car though. Try not to get the front panel wet, especially the radio. So, after scouring Gumtree and visiting several building sites, we picked up a few wood pallets to build our bed frame. So our particular model of van is quite a lot smaller than most backpacker vans. So we really had to economize on the space that we had. We needed to think about the best design that wouldn't cramp up the interior, but would also provide enough storage for everything that we needed. We also wanted a fully functional bed-to-table conversion inside so we could do some stealth camping and just hang out in the van if need be. So when we designed the bed frame, we split it into 3 parts. The back part and the front part of the bed are made of pallets, and so the middle part is just one single sheet of wood that will double as a table, but we'll get to that later. After a considerable amount of planning, we could finally get to work. So that is step 5. Measure the space of the van and try and plan it out. Always have a plan, saves a lot of time in the end. So, step 6. We started out with cutting the pallets to size for the back and front of our bed frame. And then we ripped off the extra wood that we didn't need. We used some of that wood for the legs of the bed frame later on down the road. The back part is longer and wider, and it stretches across the entire width of the van. The front part is significantly shorter, and because of the step to the side door, is shorter in width as well. For step 7, we put the pallets into the van to make sure we got all our measurements right. So because we're working with a lot of unfinished wood, it's a little rough around the edges. So step 8 is to sand and smooth everything down. So after it's all nice and smooth, it was time to put the legs on the frame. When planning to utilize our space wisely while making it as comfortable as possible, we paid special attention to the height of the roof. Once we got the perfect height, we got some really cheap corner brackets that we flattened and cut them in half and used them to attach the legs. Next is step 10. We used a 60 by 120 centimeter board to double as the middle panel of the bed, and we attached small blocks of wood in between the pallets for it to sit on. It is thick and heavy enough to support our weight, and a nice durable table surface. How we struggled and struggled with this table. We went to Bunnings like 3 or 4 times just to figure out how to execute this design that we had, and it was just terrible. Thankfully, our wonderful and experienced roomie, Blake, came to the rescue and built a flawless and simple design for our table in under 30 minutes that had us thinking, why didn't we think of that? So here's how he did it. First, he cut out a handle in the middle of the board for easier handling, and 2 notches on the side for 2 different table positions. He then attached 2 pieces of wood to the side of the van to hold up the table. And he attached another board to the bottom side of the van wall. His idea was to wedge the table up by a piece of plywood. So, he attached another piece of wood to the bottom of the table itself using wood glue and a staple gun. He planned to use 2 nails as pins to keep the table from sliding out of place. So he drilled 2 holes in the table and 4 holes in the top panel of wood that was attached to the van. By having 4 holes instead of 2, we have the option of setting up the table in 2 different positions. Voila! Too easy. Thanks, Blake! Then we just sprayed a few coats of varnish to our tabletop, and we were good to go. So next is the foam mattress. So while we were trying to figure out what to use for our bed, we went to the foam store. And to get a piece of foam cut to the size that we needed would be upwards of $400. Not having it. Luckily, we went on Gumtree and we found a hostel that was selling their old foam mattresses for $35 a pop. I mean, compared to $400, pretty good deal. Because the middle of our bed doubles as a table, we had to cut the foam into 3 pieces. To do this, we measured out the pieces and used the lines as a guide to cut the foam in straight lines. We used an extremely sharp knife for this process. We wanted to make sure it was clean, so we took a pressure washer and some soap to it, although it really wasn't all that dirty. Then, after rinsing all the soap off, we tried to squeeze out as much water as possible. After that, it was time to play the waiting game and wait for it to dry.
What are you doing?
I'm making this dry because it's been 5 days and it's still not dry. we wanted to add some cheap yet eye-catching flooring. We got a sheet of wood and a few peel and stick laminate tiles from Bunnings and just measured and cut and put into place. Voila! So next, Toshi and I split off to do our own projects. Toshi was in charge of carpentry and storage and built a pull-out drawer to go under the front part of the bed. He only used wood from the free recycled pallets, and for his first time, I think he did a really awesome job. He also built a handy little shelf to go on the bedside for all of our toiletries and stuff we use day to day. I was really impressed with his creativity here. I personally love this shelf because you can lift up the flap, slide in 2 sticks to hold it up, and create even more table space. It also has a latch on the side so things don't fall out when we are driving around. Wicked job, Toshi! Next, it was my turn to upholster the mattress pieces and make the curtains, to add a splash of color into our new home. We purchased secondhand sheets and doona covers, or duvet covers, from an op shop, which is an Aussie slang for thrift store. I started by measuring out all the dimensions of the foam and the length of the material we had, and I drew a pattern on a piece of paper, sized it to scale, and cut it out. It was very important that I got all the measurements right, because we only had a limited amount of fabric for the foam covers. I wanted to incorporate the buttons on the doona covers into my design, so that the mattress covers could easily be removed and washed. I used the buttons that were already part of the doona covers as the opening that runs along the back side of the foam. Since we have 3 different size pieces to our foam mattress, I had to do this whole process 3 times. I had to cater to the different sizes of the foam, and I used 2 different doona covers made out of different types of material. So another thing that we had a lot of trouble finding was a sewing machine that we could just borrow for a couple days. Unfortunately, our generation of people don't really own sewing machines, and we weren't about to spend a bunch of money on one just to use for a couple days. Luckily, we did end up getting our hands on one, lent to us by a dear friend and mother figure. So then it was time for me to get to work and sew all of the foam covers and the curtains. So to make the curtains, first I measured all of the windows in the van. I tried to make sure I had enough material to cover everything, and I made it all fit on one sheet. I wanted to make blackout curtains with black on the outside so that you couldn't see on the inside and it didn't really look like anyone was living in the van, so we could do stealth camping in the city. So I cut a double layer, one in funky cow print for the inside and the other in black. Then I sewed them together and I made a small loop on the top and bottom for the wire to slide in. Installing the curtains was so easy. Just drill, wrap a wire around the screw, put it across, slide on the curtain, and voila, privacy. This is a disclaimer. Neither am I a mechanic, nor am I an electrician. So if you're looking for a step-by-step guide on how to install a second battery in your van, I would suggest doing a bit of research and finding other tutorials based on exactly that. Step 16. Dual battery system installation. for dummies. First, get a deep cycle battery. We got our hands on an industrial grade one from a friend who works for an electrical company. To make this system work, we bought a dual battery isolator kit and an inverter. Since this is for when we are traveling and going long periods of time in the bush without any access to power, we needed this to charge our electronics. The isolator is a device that you hook up between your car battery and a second battery to allow charging when the car is running, but preventing the second battery from draining the car battery when the car is off. The last thing you need when you are camping out in the outback is a dead car battery. We bought this kit from a local electronics store that already contains everything you need and a handy step-by-step instruction guide on how to install it. So first, we opened the box and checked if everything was inside. The box came with the isolator, 6 meters of red cable which was terminated at both ends, a shorter black cable, some copper lugs, 2 red heat shrink sleeves, some cable ties, and a few other bits and pieces. Next, we figured out an appropriate place for our battery. Then we ran the length of cable from our battery through to the passenger side, just below the glove box, into the front of the van. We found a place for the isolator to sit right on top of the fuse box and secured it into place with a few screws. We cut the red cable to length and proceeded to terminate it by exposing some of the wire, putting on the copper lug and crimping it using a pair of electrician's pliers. We then slipped on the little red shrink sleeves and used a torch to tighten and shrink them into place. We then cut the other end of the red cable to run from the car battery to the positive terminal of the isolator. Basically, the isolator regulates the connection between the 2 batteries with an internal automatic switch. We also found a place to earth the black negative wire coming out of the isolator. This is important for avoiding the risk of electric shock. To properly earth or ground a wire, you must have a bare metal connection to the body of the car. We also did this with a second battery. The red cable which runs from the isolator through the van gets hooked up to the positive terminal of the second battery. All that was left after this was to reconnect our car battery and see if everything was working properly with a voltmeter. The inverter we decided to purchase was a 360-watt pure sine wave inverter from the same electronics store. We spent a fair bit of money on this, but we figured that it was worth it since this type is much better for sensitive electronics like laptops, and the salesman gave us a pretty sweet deal. Lastly, step 17, our DIY roof rack. Do you recognize this guy? That's Rod, our legend of a mechanic. We wanted a simple roof rack, but we couldn't find any for a reasonable price that would fit our van. After enough complaining, Rod volunteered to make one for us. We went to his associate's junkyard, and they found bits of scrap metal to weld together to make the clamps which would go on the gutters of our van. They used 2 large bars, which they cut and then welded to the clamps. After a layer of primer and a layer of paint, we were good to go. All within about an hour. What a legend. In the meantime, around the yard. Nice. Nice. Cuisine art. Huh.
I can make good pasta. Look at what I found.
Time to show you our van life supplies. This is just to give you an idea of what kind of stuff you can get and where. We went to op shops, garage sales, dollar stores, and got hand-me-downs from friends. We also hunted down wicked deals at some of the bigger stores like Target, Kmart, and Bunnings. First off, our kitchen. Pretty much all our kitchen stuff was either hand-me-down or bought from op shops. Except for these that we purchased from IKEA for a few dollars. $1 coffee mugs from an op shop. This solar drink bottle was $4 each at Kmart. Super useful folding table. We got some new and used Tupperware containers. Op Shop cutting board for $3. Set of plates. And along with the pans that we found in the junkyard, we got this Swiss diamond pan for only $10.50. We scored when we found all of this useful stuff at a garage sale. To keep the bugs out, we got mosquito coils and mesh, and to keep things clean, we got a little dustpan and brush set from a dollar store. We got these cute fairy lights from IKEA for only a few dollars, and the tarp from the same garage sale. We got this solar shower for $8 at Kmart, even though it ended up getting a hole in it and we had to throw it out eventually. We scored a wicked deal on the hammock at Target for only $10.50. And we figured you could never have too many tea towels, right? We got a couple different sets from IKEA for next to nothing, really. We have a love-hate relationship with these chairs. We love how they were only $6.50 from Kmart, but we hate how fast they broke and ripped apart. I think this was a little bit overkill and we left some of this stuff behind, but we got a few butane gas containers and 2 gas-powered stoves, which is actually very useful if you want to make a nice meal. We got this drink cooler bag and this esky from that same garage sale for $10. And another esky from Target on sale for only $20. We got this 5-liter water container from an op shop for about $5, and this 30-liter water container from Bunnings, which was $28 with the tap. And this camel pack was from Kmart for only $20. We got 4 of these black 35-liter storage containers for about $7 each, and they fit perfectly under our bed. We use them to store all of our foodstuffs and kitchen supplies. And lastly, our beautiful Coca-Cola umbrella that we scored from that same garage sale. Thanks so much for watching my video on how we made our beautiful home, and I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll stay tuned and subscribe for more wonderful videos about our adventures across Australia. We're currently in Broome, Western Australia, and it is beautiful here. Every day it's like 35 degrees and I'm sweaty and the ocean's right there and it's really lovely. I'm happy that I could finally get this video out to you, and if you have any questions or comments, please let me know, and I'm eager to hear what you guys think of our beautiful van. Thanks for watching. Bye.